If you're going to succeed in your auction drafts, you're going to have to find value. Before we get started, if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and check out our video of tips to dominate your auction draft in 2023. We'll give you tips on nominations, team building, stacks. You don't want to miss that. And then after that, come back over here and watch this video where Joe and I give 8 players that are going to be a value in your draft.
Hike!
Disclaimer, before we continue, in an auction draft, you can't follow too closely on the cheat sheet. You may have a fan of that team that player's value skyrockets. You have to have a knowledge of who is in your draft. So when we talk about this video, we are going through Fantasy Pros half PPR cheat sheet for auction values. It's a great barometer for where we think they'll go, but do not hang your hat on these values because there is no way that these values are going to stay intact. Every league is going to be different.
All right, so one of my favorite players here going at a value is going to be quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, and he's listed as $5 right now. And to me, that's a crazy cheap value for your quarterback, especially with somebody like Tua that's got the top 10 quarterback upside that he possesses. The one thing you can that's creating that dip right now is the injury history, and he only played in 13 games last year. People are afraid of the repeating the concussions. I understand that is there. I guess I'm a little less concerned about that, just because I know concussions are serious and they can occur, but it's not like he's rehabbing at the same time from like a bad knee injury or something that I feel like could take longer. He's had time to heal. I've liked that he's been working out and strengthening his neck. You can noticeably see the improvement he's made as far as the strength in his neck and just the actual size of his neck. And then he's also taken some MMA classes and, learning how to fall the right way. So his head's not snapping back when he's taking some of those violent hits, in the pocket, creating those concussions. So I'm a little less on I know he's a risk. I guess I look at it as a little less risky, just for those improvements. Everyone can get hurt, but I'm willing to take the risk, especially for $5. Week 7 through 10 last year, he had 4 straight top 12 performances. He also led the league in passing yards on play action at 1,431 yards, which accounted for over 40% of his total passing yards. And that was only in 13 games that he played last year. And we know, with this system that Mike McDaniel likes to run, their run first and play action heavy. So that's still going to be there. He's in a quarterback friendly offense. And he averaged the 9th most fantasy points per game last year at the quarterback position. I'm taking Tua at the risk of the $5 and, with that top 10 quarterback upside I mentioned.
Yeah, and not to mention, this is the second year that he's going to be in Mike McDaniel's system. So to me, he's only going to be more comfortable with that offense. And you're right. I mean, I think the reason why people don't want him is because of his injury history. And if he has a concussion, can they really rely on him? But unless you're going for Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, or Patrick Mahomes, you probably want to have a second quarterback in the stable, unless you're in a super flex league, which then you definitely, it's a whole different story. So getting a guy like Tua, he's got great upside. If he can stay healthy, there's no denying that he'll continue to do well.
Yeah, that's really the only thing is, can he stay healthy? And if he does, you're going to reap the benefits.
So my value at the quarterback position is quarterback Geno Smith. He's going for $8. Now, I know some of you may be worried about Geno Smith because of, was he an anomaly last year? Will he be found out this season and not do well? Well, last season he was 4th in passing touchdowns, 8th in passing yards, led the NFL in completion percentage. And, the Seahawks, they're known as a run-heavy team, but in neutral games, they threw 60% of the time. So this team is going to be a competitive team. You now also have Jackson Smith and Jigba coming in. He has looked great so far in training camp and preseason. Now you got a 3-headed monster in Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's only going to help Geno Smith's production. And on top of that, they also drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 2nd round to be able to help with that running effort with Kenneth Walker. This offense is going to be humming So to me, Geno Smith is a great value pick. I can't see why he's not going to continue to do what he was doing last year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I guess the only caveat, I guess, is, the people that are out there, oh, defenses will figure him out just because last year was his one good year. I guess that could still happen, but, for $8 and the way he performed last year, and like you said, upgrading weapons, especially adding JSN to that offense, could it be absolutely huge for him?
Not to mention he gets to play Arizona and the Rams, who probably they're one of the two worst defenses in the entire league. He should absolutely smoke those guys, and he plays them twice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are 4 games against with the inner division and just terrible defenses. So that is a valid point as well. So my next value player is going to be Antonio Gibson, currently valued at $8. I'm really liking this guy. I'm expecting a lot more usage out of him. J.D. McKissick is gone, leaving 39 vacated targets at the running back position, and now Gibson. He's really the receiving back for this offense. That's not really Brian Robinson's skill set, the other running back there in Washington. And Gibson's in line for a lot of targets. And then I also expect him to be utilizing that run game. This should be a better Commanders offense, with Eric Bieniemy coming over from the Kansas City Chiefs as well. Being they should be able to, score more points. I have faith in Sam Howell to be decent. I know other people might not have as much faith in him, but I feel like he's going to be decent. Antonio Gibson's coming off a season. He had 46 receptions and ranked 9th among all running backs in yards per route run at 1.66 in 2022. And then another factor to consider is Antonio Gibson. He's 25. He's in a contract year. And we all know when a guy's in a contract year, they tend to ball out. So I have no problem taking Antonio Gibson for $8.
You didn't finish that sentence, Joe. It's they ball out so they can cash out. That's what it is. But I agree. I agree with you. With J.D. McKissick out of there, he's the receiving entity in that backfield. You saw how the Bieniemy, who knows, maybe it's Andy Reid, but you saw the Chiefs offense use Jerick McKinnon greatly, in that offense, and even Clyde from before that. So he should be a staple in the offense. And to me, I'm not that worried about Brian Robinson. Maybe he gets 10 carries a game, but he's just Gibson's a guy you want. And so to me, I'm with you. He's worth the value. So my running back value is Zach Charbonnet for $5. Kenneth Walker is already dealing with a groin injury. Charbonnet, I would argue, is probably the best possible handcuff you could have in the league, in my opinion. Because if Walker does remain injured, I believe you're talking about RB1 upside with Zach Charbonnet. We saw this last year when Kenneth Walker became the starter. He was thrusted into the role after Rashad Penny was out for the year. Kenneth Walker is going for $22 based on Fantasy Pros compared to Charbonnet's $5, which to me is an absolute steal. I could see Charbonnet personally having a path where he actually gets more of the workload than Walker. I'm expecting a 60-40 split in Charbonnet's favor. Charbonnet is an all-purpose back. I think that he has the opportunity to do very well. Don't look at Joe's head nodding. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I don't see this going as a 60-40 split in Charbonnet's favor. If anything, it's Kenneth Walker's. It's still his backfield. Charbonnet is the incumbent. Pete Carroll, has loyalty to his guys. We saw that same situation, even though they took Rashad Penny at the end of the first round in the draft they did. Chris Carson was the guy and was still the number one guy. Now the question will be, you mentioned Kenneth Walker's injury history. That's really the one question. But as long as Kenneth Walker's on the field, he's the RB1 on this team.
Joe, you can't trust Pistol Pete. He rides the hot hand, man. You saw they drafted Rashad Penny in the first round, and Chris Carson, who was an undrafted player, ended up leapfrogging him. Why did they draft Zach Charbonnet in the second round? There was a reason why they did.
I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of hype and a lot of steam with Zach Charbonnet, and Kenneth Walker to me is the way better player. I'm not sure how good Charbonnet even is, honestly. I don't know. Kenneth Walker's the explosive guy. He can handle the workload. He's also an all-purpose back. I don't know. You can keep your value at Charbonnet for $5.
Thank you very much. I'll take him. Thank you very much.
No problem. You can have them.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
All right. So my next value player here is wide receiver Zay Flowers, currently going for $4. He's a guy that I've really been rising on lately. We've seen the reports out of training camp and now in the preseason, this guy just continually makes plays. And he has the speed and athleticism to become the number one receiving option in this, Baltimore Ravens offense. Of course, Mark Andrews is there. He's honestly the biggest threat. These other receivers like Bateman and Odell Beckham Jr. don't really scare me. And with the new offensive coordinator and Todd Monken coming in, the passing volume should increase for this offense, which should also increase the opportunities for, say, Flowers in this offense. And then in his last year at Boston College, Flowers played all over the field, including 33% of his routes run came out of the slot. So I feel like that almost opens things up for the Ravens to just kind of being able to play him all over the field and create those mismatches, and Lamar to just hit this guy in open space and, let him run and create those big plays.
Yeah, what's good about him is even in the event that he doesn't get enough targets, which would be my biggest concern, he's super explosive. So I would expect possibly a high ADOT, average depth of target, and possibly a higher yards after catch because the guy is silky smooth. He's able to evade tackles. We just saw the most recently in the preseason game against the Commanders. I mean, he was wide open and was able to put it in and believe in the end zone. So, to me, he's a great value. So my value at the wide receiver is Gabe Davis, going for $9. Gabe Davis is in a contract year. And as we were talking about with Joe with Antonio Gibson, he's looking to ball out so he can cash out. Anytime a player's in a contract year, he's got extra incentive to perform strongly. Gabe suffered a high ankle sprain last season, and I believe it really hampered him from having a better season. People were expecting a huge rise after his 3-touchdown performance against the Chiefs. He recently even came out and said that he's now taping his ankles, which maybe doesn't seem like a big deal, but a lot of players, from what I understand, they don't know if by taping their ankles, they'll be less fluid in their breaks. But for him, he's been able to do that during training camp. He's been feeling fine. He feels more sturdy. So I expect a big jump for him. He averaged 36 routes run per game last season. And if he had played 17 games, he only played 15, he would have been in the top 5 for routes run. And Gabe Davis was 6 in average depth of target at 15. And in every season of his career, Gabe Davis has had at least 6 touchdowns. So with all that being said, I expect Gabe Davis to do really well.
Yeah, you like Dave Gavis?
No, Joe, I like Gabe Davis.
Yeah,
not Dave Gavis.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Steve. I like Gabe Davis this year, and he's definitely like one of those post-hype sleeper candidates. Heading into this year, he had a lot of hype, and everyone was talking about last year. Didn't really deliver, but another year in this Bills offense, second year with the coordinator change here, and I think good things will come in, especially if he's able to stay healthy and get past that ankle injury.
Sometimes when it comes to fantasy, it's just not the right season. You're just a year too early. I think this might be the case for him.
Yeah, definitely. And, as you mentioned, he's in the contract year, and, whether he's thinking about it or not, he's a contract year, and you always want to put your, best tape out there and trying to get that money. So he's definitely a good person to target here. All right. So my value at the tight end position is going to be Pat Freiermuth, and he's currently listed at $8. Of the tight ends who played in 10-plus games last year, Freiermuth was 6th in targets per game, and yet somehow only scored 2 touchdowns last year. And that was largely due to Kenny Pickett's 1.8% touchdown rate, which was a historically low last year. So I'm definitely expecting Pat Fryermuth to be in for some positive touchdown regression this year, as I don't expect Kenny Pickett's touchdown rate to be, that low again. It should come up. And if he's able to do that, I mean, Pat Fryermuth finished at the tight end 8 last year with only 2 touchdowns on the season. Even if he's able to, double that, he's definitely a possibility. He could get in the top 5 tight end range. And I'm expecting a breakout year for him, given his athletic ability and the role that he has within this offense. I think that the breakout's definitely going to happen this year.
Yeah, but Joe, doesn't Kenny Pickett have baby hands? Aren't you concerned that he's going to be able to get the ball to other people? You think Deontay Johnson's going to get more touchdowns? Do you think that Pat Fryermuth's going to get more touchdowns? Do you think like Kenny Pickett's going to be an MVP candidate this season?
No, I'm not saying he's an MVP candidate, but I don't think, like I said, I mean, I'm not going astronomical. I mean, talking about Pat Fryermuth doubling his tight end or his touchdown output from like 2 to 4. I mean, I think he could do more, but it's, as you mentioned, they're going to really rely on, Kenny Pickett's ability and how much of a step forward he makes. But, I like what I've seen in preseason thus far, hearing good things out of camp, that he can take that next step. So we'll see how this Steelers offense looks this year.
Yeah, I'm pulling your leg here. I like Fryermuth.
No, I know, because I called him baby hands because of everything with the draft and his hand size. I know, I gotcha.
Yeah, Fryermuth, I like him too. I think he's a great value. My only question is, actually, I think it could help him. I just wonder what Darnell Washington's role on this team will be. He's a great blocker, and if he is, and they play a lot of 12 personnel, maybe Fryermuth will go out for a lot more passes. I think he actually could be a great red zone target. For Kenny Pickett. Remember, Kenny Pickett didn't play the entire season last year, so he's still got a few games to really learn and gain some momentum. And maybe this is the year that he does take a jump. I'm a little skeptical, I think, as you are, as far as Kenny Pickett. I think he's the worst quarterback in the division. I don't think it's even close, but maybe he'll surprise some people.
Yeah, I definitely think he, has the ability to surprise, and there's no doubt that he's got, just the offensive talent that he has around him definitely puts him in a good situation to succeed.
So my value at the tight end is tight end Chigoziem Okonkwo, going for $5. In 17 games last year, he had 46 targets, 32 receptions, 450 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Austin Hooper in 17 games had 60 targets. So those are completely vacated. And then we just recently heard the news that Treylon Burks sprained his LCL on his left knee and will miss a few weeks. And, maybe he recovers fine, but you never know when it comes to injuries, especially with the ligaments. They can kind of ail you throughout the entire season. And so as a result, I think Treylon Burks was a big sleeper for a lot of people. I think they were thinking he could take that next, that as you like to talk about, Joe, that jump at the second year wide receiver mark. We're expecting that jump. But with DeAndre Hopkins coming in, which I think he'll secure a lot of targets, I think Chigoziem Okonkwo could realistically be the number 2 receiving option in Tennessee. I mean, who do they have behind Treylon Burks? I mean, maybe Kyle Phillips, maybe. Maybe Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, but I think at the end of the day, I think he's got some great value, and he's got the athletic profile, like you talked about with Pat Fryermuth, that I think he could do really well and take a second-year jump. So I like Chick a lot.
Yeah, Chick's somebody that I like as well. And it's hard to argue his price at $5 as well. That makes it even better. But yeah, as you mentioned with Treylon Burks, I'm disappointed. I was a person that was liking him to be a sleeper, but the injury definitely puts a little damper on that, just because outside of DeAndre Hopkins, as you mentioned, for Jake's possible role, that like number 2 role in this offense is up for grabs. And, I was expecting that to be Treylon Burks, but with the injury, maybe it's not. And, their next best weapon, and as far as athleticism goes, to your point, is definitely Jake. And we've seen the explosive plays, last year that he had, and that was even with some bad quarterback play. If Ryan Tannehill can stay healthy, Jake should be a smash play in this offense.
No matter what strategy you go with in your auction drafts, whether it's studs and duds, balanced or value, you're gonna have to find these values. Sometimes it's the $1 players that you end up getting at the end of your draft that could completely change the fantasy season. Who ends up winning in your leagues. So make sure you check out these values. Thank you so much for watching, and